Yes, an HVAC technician can create a profile, but chances are they're not going to be right now. They're out there fixing that unit. They're probably not using the desktop like I think a lot of people use on LinkedIn. They're not using the what's that like when you the first homepage. So it's just a different avenue of the economy and a different persona. So yeah, that's where we've just found our niche, and I think doing those initial interviews and gaining that data allowed us to say we're not a recruiting service for everyone, and nobody should be. Just like developers, for anyone out there that's in tech, someone tells you, "Hey, I'm a full stack developer." You're probably better at back end or front end somewhere. No one does it all.
So David chimed in here and said, using the data, it showed that LinkedIn Recruiter platform didn't work for me. And I think I'm hearing commonality in what you all are saying. Kind of going back to that stat, 4 times more hard skills. Yeah, I don't know that LinkedIn asks you about those hard skills at all. So it's not sort of the target demographic that they're looking for on LinkedIn. Which is, I never stratified it that way myself. And actually, now that you say it, and both of you say that, it makes actually a heck of a lot of sense. Joseph had chimed in here, said even base skills can be built on, but they must be willing to learn and grow. Let's dig into that for a second, because I think that's an interesting thread. There's this whole thing out there called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it talks about this idea of GWC, get it, want it, capability to do it. You want to be able to have someone who's hungry. You want to have somebody who's got the capability, right? But then they also got to, they've got to have the desire to get there. How do you sift? I feel like that's sort of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, is trying to get that person who's got the capacity and the desire to do that. By going through this checklist method where you're kind of filtering them out, does it get you closer to finding those really good people? Does it help in that regard?
I gotta say, earlier I was on a conversation with a fantastic construction company. They're actually here in the Southeast, and they had 2 very distinct hiring needs. One, they're looking for general laborers, because at the end of the day, hey, for that building to get up, we're going to need hundreds of people on site. And it's the understanding, like, you're willing to work, you have the desire, you've gone through the process of creating a profile, you're looking, that's enough to get you in the door. At the other end, it is not an easy task to become an industrial electrician. Knocking out an apprenticeship, a journeyman, having a laundry list of certifications, that in itself also shows like this person is dedicated to their career. Because I think a bad misnomer from kind of a lot of white collar folks that I've run into when we discuss this is oftentimes, and it's frankly insulting, they don't often think that blue collar tradespeople see it as a career. And it is. Like, you can make a fantastic living, not just economically, but intrinsically. And seeing someone's career progression through those stats shows that desire to constantly learn, just like what we've been talking about.
So it's interesting. I mean, call business blind spots exposed. Lots of times, I'm getting challenged a little bit here in the way I think. Look, I've always worked in technology myself, and your career progression is kind of through that role and that rank. It's not so much there's some certifications and things like that, but you can do that through on-the-job training, to your point, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're going to be an industrial electrician, yeah, that's no joke. You don't just read a book, Industrial Electricians for Dummies, and you get there, right?
I've been terrified at some of our client work sites. Like, you look at those things, like, I don't even want to get close to it.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there are some dangerous environments if you don't know what the hell you're doing, right? Yes. So it's interesting kind of you're saying this. I mean, I have never even looked at LinkedIn that way. You're right. It just doesn't make sense. And I think David's saying that he said other job boards work better, and so did regular searches on LinkedIn, instead of spending a lot of money on a platform like LinkedIn Recruiter. Joseph, you're saying no. What were you saying no to? I would love to find out what you were saying there. But back to your point is those hard skills make all the difference. And if you can kind of watch that progression of those hard skills over time, you actually get their ability and their desire to go down that path, because it is a path. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I hadn't looked at that. So, all right. So let's kind of talk about some things that people can start to shift in their behavior today that will change the outcome of the people that bring in the door. I hear from trades companies all the time. I hear from field service companies all the time. I can't find good people. Where does that start? Why does it start that way? Is it just because they're getting 800 resumes, but they're getting quantity but no quality? Is that really the issue there? Is that it? Is that all that's play?
Well, I could talk, and we have as part of our welcome email, we have a really nice best practices, that we highly recommend our clients to follow. And there's some behavioral type stuff. Like one thing that we have noticed, and this does relate back to data, is this took me a long time to get comfortable with myself with, so I understand the resistance. Text messaging is okay to do in a professional setting now. And so many companies are losing out on great talent because, like on Blue Recruit, they'll connect with them, they start doing in-app messaging, sending text messages, and then it's, oh, I emailed you your job application and you never sent it back. That person actually doesn't have their email account on their phone and they have no idea you ever did that, and you just lost somebody because you went through a channel that they're not using. Mm-hmm. So just like behavioral data in that. But I think one of the big things is the siloing of information. And that, again, it doesn't matter what size of an organization. I can't talk about how Fortune 50s or Fortune 100 companies do it. But even in our startup with 5 of us, I remember one time someone on our product team sent me over some information from my database. And I was like, what is this? Like, I'd never even seen it before. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's what I do for this. I'm like, there's 5 of us, and I didn't even know we were collecting this. And that just shows, like, it doesn't matter what size organization you have. At the end of the day, it comes down to communication and ensuring that in an efficient manner, that information is shared and everyone can see it.
So this is really interesting because I think just before we started, I talked about we did a kickoff for a customer, and in that kickoff, just kind of solicited what are your expectations for this kickoff call, and we got a couple of things from different parts of the organization. They said there's a little bit of a yellow, or I actually would say a red flag that popped up that nobody else had in the team had thought of before, and I think maybe that's a little bit of what I'm hearing here is this idea that when you're bringing people to the table, there probably needs to be a lot more internal communication to set proper expectations as to who we want to hire for that role, and getting all that stuff set up at the outset, as opposed to having someone sitting across the table from them doing an interview and saying, I don't know why we're hiring this person. They don't fit any of the requirements that we have because nobody ever bothered to ask them. So I think I'm hearing a little bit of internal coordination is probably a first way. Am I echoing that properly?
I completely agree with that. I mean, I know what we've done, ourselves internally, and I definitely think I saw some information a while back about small businesses, particularly that a bad small business hire you should not look at it as, okay, we lost X amount of money from the salary we paid them for the 12 months they were working here, but rather quadruple that. And to a small business, that's the actual cost that bad hire had on you, because you were losing out on client servicing, additional sales, what have you. The training required in a small business, chances are maybe one of the owners is the one doing the training, and you're pulling even more away from the business. So that's why, making that good hire is even more important the smaller your organization is.
It goes beyond just sort of the plain economic or financial impact. It's really just the momentum for that organization, because 10 people.
What's up, Jen?
Yeah. Hey, Jen. I saw that you chimed in as well. Good to see you. Joseph had typed in a comment here: spraying a house is much different than wiring a house. So talk to me about that. You got different field service companies, different trades companies, right? They've got different sets of certifications. Does this work across the gamut? I mean, it's not. I think what I'm hearing from you, one size fits all, actually doesn't.
No, not at all. Just like my father-in-law Joe told me, the ability to paint a house is not the same, or the skill set to paint a house is not the same as the skill set to paint a car. And I think to a lot of us laymen, it's like, oh, painting's painting.